What's up, guys? It is opening day 2025. This is a significant day for multiple reasons. One, it's the first time getting on the water this year. It's really early. It's only March 22nd. So the water temps are going to be extremely low. The body of water that I'm sitting at right now literally had ice end to end 3 days ago. There's still actually a chunk of ice over in that bay right there. I'm just not going to fish that direction. But we're giving it a go because I'm taking out the new kayak, doing kind of a dry run, seeing if everything is where I want it, see how the configuration is laid out, and kind of doing my first impressions, which is this video. But also, I'm not going to go out and just pedal around in a kayak and talk about it. I'm going to fish today. So I wanted to talk about how do you set up for stupid early ice out fishing conditions. Like, what baits do you use? How do you fish this? I'm not going to pretend like we're going to go out here and slam them. This time of year, I'll be happy if I catch one fish. But I wanted to kind of go over how we can go about attacking a lake like this, show you how to catch fish, what baits and techniques to start with, and how to work your way through a pattern and see if you can locate fish in this super cold water. So I do want to preface this with, I am blessed and I have a pretty good income and I'm able to have a bunch of rods. So I want to start by saying you don't have to have all of these baits. You don't have to have 10 rods like I do, but take into account the baits I'm talking about and then apply it to your bodies of water. So the first technique that we're going to be using is going to be a swim jig. So this right here is a Booyah. It's actually a pitching flipping jig in black blue. It's a 1/4 ounce size. It's not a very big one. I'm not going to get super heavy and super bulky. The swim jig has some huge advantages. It's probably one of the only baits I use all year long. And the reason for that is because a swim jig, you can pitch it, you can flip it, you can drag it, you can swim it, you can yo-yo it. There's just so many different varieties of retrieves that this is one of the few baits that you'll see me having tied on from March right through to November. It's not going to be a bait that's really going to come off much. It's going to stay on here and be used throughout the season. I tie that on a straight braid and I fish that on a medium heavy fast. This one's actually, I believe, a 7-1 FX. I use a bait caster. You technically could probably fish this on a spinning rod at this size, the 1/4 ounce. I don't necessarily recommend it though. I highly recommend using a bait caster. But this right here is the first bait that we're going to start with. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to start it with a little paddle tail. I actually pour my own, and I'll show you guys that in just a second here. All right, guys, so I grabbed my bait binder. This right here is really cool. It is a reaction tackle bait binder. They just started selling these. It's got clear sides on both sides. Super, if you guys can hear that, super durable plastic, waterproof zippers, and it holds a ton of baits. You'll notice that a lot of those are Ziploc bags. It's because I've been pouring my own. It's something I've been getting into lately with the economy, with honestly just availability. I haven't been able to get colors I wanted, so I've been pouring my own baits. And this right here, in the last 2 seasons, has been my secret weapon. It is a black with green fleck slick shiner. It's a Do It Molds mold. And I've been pairing that with that black blue swim jig. I don't know why the green and black going with the black and blue works, but I've tried many other trailers and that has been the one that has caught me the most fish and it's caught me consistently big fish. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to put a paddle tail on a swim jig, and that's going to be the first bait to try out the season. All right, guys, next bait, and this one's probably going to be a longer video, so be prepared. We're using a medium, heavy, moderate cranking rod from FX. This one's already tied up. This is literally a bait that I used last year right at the end of the season and caught fish on, but small size square bill. That one right there is a mock bouncer and ghost perch. I may retie it just because it's been an entire season sitting on this rod, but simply put, square bill, cold water, no brainer, right? All right, guys, so I've done 2 power fishing techniques. Time to throw in a finesse. So this is an FX medium fast spinning rod. It's actually a shorter rod, not very long. I like it for the ability and the feel of it. I fish it on Hi-Vis braid to a floral leader. And the bait, weedless wacky. And this right here is a reaction tackle weedless wacky hook. It's got this little keeper here. What that does is it prevents you from having to change hooks. This hook, if you guys look at it, I'll show it to you again real quick. It's really shaped more like a Nico hook than a wacky hook. But what this does is I can fish it weedless, or I can just take this off. You can actually spin these out of the way, and now it's just a wacky rig hook without the weedless. So it allows me to do both techniques without having to change hooks, which is something that's very beneficial, especially in a kayak or when you're limited on rods. So that gives you the option to fish both styles. This is a bait I fish all year long. A lot of guys don't use this. My guys in my tournament trail pick on me because I will fish this from March until November. It is a constantly used bait. But what I do, one thing I do use is a smaller profile. Grande bass rattlesnake worms, 4-inch yum dingers, 4-inch max scent worms. The smaller profile worms is where I'll start the season out and then work my way up into bigger worms and other baits as the bite calls for it. But finesse, wacky rig, you got to fish it to understand it, but it really is just a bait that works all year long. All right, for those of you who follow my channel, you know that I fish a belly weighted Kitech a lot. Well, today we're not doing that. This particular body of water does not have a lot of grass. It's mostly hard bottom. So we're going with a small ball head from Reaction Tackle, and we're throwing my New England AI G3 bait mold. This is in the Pro Blue Shiner color that I made. And the reason I'm running this is because bait fish this time of year are tiny. And this is just like a finessey, but still faster retrieve style bait that I can use to try to entice some fish. You know, the smallmouth, they love it. The largemouth, they love it. Hell, even trout will eat this style of bait. So it's just kind of the perfect option. I can slow roll it. I can let it get down on the bottom, and I can tick the bottom. I can do a lot with this one style of bait, and the size of it and the profile of it is perfect for fishing this early part of the year. Something a lot of guys sleep on: swim baits. This is a 6-inch trace. I believe it's the 6-inch. You can use mag drafts, bigger swim baits, stuff like that. You got to remember, bass this time of year are still lethargic. They're still kind of groggy. So they may only want to eat one meal a day. They're not going to want to chase down a bunch of little tiny bait fish to fill their bellies. It's going to cost them more energy to go catch those bait fish than it is that they're going to gain from eating them. So sometimes they just want to eat one big meal and go back to chilling until the next day. So fishing a bigger profile bait is not a bad idea if you can. That is a heavy powered rod, so you do sometimes need significant gear, but you can get away with bigger paddle tails and other styles of baits that are in the larger size that you could still fish on your regular gear. Highly recommend trying that, because at the very least you'll get follows. They'll be curious, they'll see it, you'll know where they're at, and you can follow up with your wacky rig or your smaller finesse bait. All right guys, 2 more baits and then we're gonna get on the water, I promise. So, chatterbait mini. We're gonna go with a chatterbait mini instead of a full-size chatterbait. Again, smallmouth in this body of water, combined with the fact that I think the smaller profile just fits the overall early theme. Now this is a Rapala Mooch minnow I threw on there as a trailer. Just gives that little bit of kicking action, not too violent, not going to affect the blade too much, but it's going to make that nice vibration, but in a small package. So hopefully this right here is a good chatterbait alternative for the start of the year. If not, I may upsize to the full-size chatterbait. The only other bait that we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you guys right now, we're going to go with a blade bait. I'm normally a lipless fisherman, but I also like silent baits. Well, this right here is essentially a silent lipless, and blade baits do work really, really well in cold water. So we're going to try using this 6th Sense. It's a color that I've used in the past in other styles of baits and had success. So that's going to be the final bait that we're going to talk about. I'm going to put that on fluorocarbon on a FX medium heavy moderate rod. Again, the moderate rod helps me to get that hook up, helps me to keep those fish pinned. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to put this baby on a rod, and then we're going to hit the water. Well, a little midday check-in, guys. I'm heading back into shore. Haven't caught anything yet. Again, don't really necessarily expect to. It's going to be tough fishing today, especially with the conditions, but having a little bit of a problem here. My pedal drive, whoever assembled this thing, I'm going to guess because they assembled it for the trade show and they didn't really do a great job of tightening everything down. My pedal is basically coming off, so I need to go back to shore to see if I can find a Allen wrench to be able to tighten up the nut on the end of my pedal, because the longer I pedal, the more that pedal is wobbling back and forth, and it's eventually probably going to fall right off at the end. So we're heading back to shore. Hopefully I have another Allen wrench, because if I don't, that's going to be the end of my trip, because I'm going to have to go home. I can't really fish like this. It's not really ideal, so I don't blame Native for this. I honestly don't even necessarily blame the guys who put it together, because this was a trade show kayak. It was a model that they brought to display it. They kind of assembled it at the show, but my guess is they didn't plan on putting it fully together and be ready to fish, because they were just trying to display it, and I ended up buying it and taking it home. So we're heading to shore. Hopefully we can find an Allen key and keep fishing. If not, I'll see you guys at the truck.
Well, that's it, guys. So the pedal drive is not going to be able to be fixed until I get home. I need an Allen key that's a lot bigger than any of the ones that I have in my truck. So we're going to call it a day. What happened there, to kind of explain, is the arm that connects to the rotating mechanism that turns your prop, it was loose. The bolt that holds that in there was not connected. My guess is the guys that were putting it together for the trade show didn't really torque it down like they're supposed to. And progressively, as I pedaled, it was getting looser and looser. I was hand tightening it for most of the day, and it just got sick of dealing with it, and it's getting looser and looser, and it's going to fall off. So I can't use it. Unfortunately, that means I'm not going to be able to get into any fish, because my day is over about 3 hours earlier than I planned. But that being said, I want to give you guys an overall first impression of the Native Titan X. It is super stable. As compared to my Old Town, it's about comparable. It has a little bit less primary stability than you would expect, but you know, I've been in a kayak a lot, so I adapted to that really quickly. I felt comfortable turning multiple side directions. I was kind of worried about that, if I was going to be nervous or if I wasn't going to feel right spinning one side or the other. I really didn't have any issue with that at all, so I'm very impressed with that. The drive is really efficient. I was able to get about 3 to 4 miles an hour or so, which is good, because that's more than I expected with the weight and the size of this boat. So that was awesome. Overall, I'm very, very happy with my purchase. Very, very happy with the kayak. The drive is not something that I blame Native. It's just something that when the guys put it together, they didn't do everything they were supposed to, and it is what it is. I'm going to go home, tighten it up, and have it ready for the next time we go fishing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I know there was no fish catches, but hopefully you learned something in the beginning, and you got to see me out in the water for the very first time on my Native Titan X. As usual, there's sometimes an issue, sometimes not. But we're going to be right back at it again tomorrow. Might be going out with my buddy Chris up north. So hopefully we'll be able to get on some fish then. I want to thank you guys for coming along with me. Welcome to the 2025 season. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and as always, let's get out there and catch more fish.